This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are located here in the studio in Colorado. We are also shooting a little test video here. It may or may not survive, given the quality here. We'll see what happens throughout the recording today. But we are in the process of revamping the studio here in Colorado to make it a little bit easier to do the video recordings on a consistent basis, so that you have an opportunity to see what I'm talking about during the show. So check it out, killerinnovations.com. We'll have links over there if we get the video up, or you can just join the YouTube channel over at the Innovators Network. Today's show, with some of my recent travel, today's show was kind of inspired by me. I took some downtime to reflect on kind of what my mission is. Why have I been doing this show? Which is to pay it forward by sharing my experiences, my lessons learned. If you are a long-time listener of the show, you know the story, or you've heard me tell the story many times about Bob Davis, my mentor, and when I asked him how I could pay back all the time he spent investing in my career, he had a very simple answer, which was, you can't pay it back. You have to pay it forward. And that's what was the impetus really for creating this show 14 years ago. We will start season 15 coming up here in March 5th to be exact, will be the 15th. We'll start season 15. Now, it's hard to believe that I've been doing this show for that long. But one area that I will confess that I haven't covered much, or in fact any in those 15 years, is around what I call now innovation confidence. Now, first of all, what do I mean by the word confidence? Confidence is a feeling of self-assurance arising from our own appreciation of our own abilities. We have confidence in our ability to do certain things. Like if you're a new parent, you don't have a lot of confidence in the first child. By the time you have the second child, third child, beyond, your confidence is increasing because you're self-assured in your own abilities. Now, when we narrow that definition specifically to innovation confidence, what is it I mean? What I mean is the self-assurance arising from one's own innovation abilities. Now, my goal over time of doing this show and by sharing my experiences and bringing guests onto the show is to show that innovation is not some special gift. It's not some special blessing that someone got. Sorry, you didn't get it. That is not what innovation is all about. Innovation is about that skill and ability that you can learn, you can practice, and you can become proficient at. And that is critically important from the standpoint of having that confidence that, no, there isn't something that you have to do or you've been born with, but just on learning the skills and practicing, you can go out and innovate. But what I hear from some of you is while you've gained a lot of knowledge from this show, you still suffer from the fact of a lack of innovation confidence. Now, the challenge is that without innovation confidence, you will not have innovation success. You won't have it. You have to get out there and actually do it. And so what I want to talk with you today is about how you can build your innovation confidence. So let's start off looking at innovation strengths and innovation weaknesses. Now, what do I mean by innovation strengths? Look, we all have strengths in certain areas, right? And if you've been listening to this podcast, you're already way ahead of other people who are trying to play the innovation game. But you have to take stock of your innovation strengths. Where is your real core? We talk about strength and innovation as being generic, but there are a lot of elemental pieces in innovation. So get a clear idea of what you are confident in your innovation abilities, such as do you have a real strength in being able to see ideas before other people see them, or understanding the unknown wants of a customer. You can just kind of sense that out. Or are you the people on the team that can predict the problems before they happen so that you can help the team avoid them? Or are you the one that finds creative ways to secure support for an idea from others, to get funding or market access or whatever it is? Find opportunities to highlight your strengths in your daily work. If you're really good at a variety of skills that make up, quote, this ability to innovate, find opportunities to really leverage your strengths. Why? Because it highlights to others what your abilities are and actually gets them to start seeing you as highly innovative. And by getting that acknowledgement, it builds your innovation confidence. You're more confident in your ability to innovate. Now, you may not be the complete package. You may not have all of the innovation skills. And look, I've been in the innovation game for 30 years. I've led innovation at a Fortune 5 company. I lead it now as running an industry innovation and R&D lab on a global scale. Even I don't have equal abilities and all of the skill sets you need in order to be a true innovation, be that complete package. Even when you don't have that complete package, you have skills that you can highlight that you are good at, that you have the ability to deliver that value at. So if you don't have the ability to highlight these skills, given your job, your role, your responsibility, you're really good here, but your job really doesn't fit, you should take on other responsibilities, volunteer to be part of another team. And then if you can't, find a completely different job and completely different role to where you can leverage those innovation skills, because you need to keep them up and you need to do them every day. So we talked about strengths. We know our strengths. Find your strengths, leverage them every day, because that will build your confidence. Now let's talk about innovation weaknesses. Since you know your strengths, now you know your areas that you need improvement on. Now, there are many different ways to improve wherever you're weak in the skill sets, whether it's program project managing, budgeting, project planning, ideation, getting over a fear of talking to customers to understand what their needs and wants are. There are many ways to improve it. One, take every opportunity to learn. Now, congratulations, you're listening to this podcast, which is just one of many steps and one of many opportunities you can use to learn and improve. But there's YouTube videos out there. There's innovation conferences that you can attend. So take every opportunity to learn. The other is find a community. Find people like you. You're going to run into, if you're trying to be an innovation resource inside your organization, you're going to run into the antibodies, the people who say, we can't afford it. We've tried it before. What makes you think you can do it? Blah, 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 blah. All of the results of the innovation antibodies. Find a community. Find the people who can encourage you, lift you up. And that's one of the reasons why us here at the Innovators Network, we've created a free community called the Innovators Community. You can just go over to theinnovators.community and you can sign up. It's free and it's growing leaps and bounds. In fact, I just spent this morning welcoming a whole bunch of people who've joined just in the last 24 hours. So hop on over there, the Innovators Community. Then you can see that you're not alone. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses. Even experts who've been doing this for years all have weaknesses, and you can find those out. And then the other is learn by doing. Practice makes perfect. Do personal projects. Volunteer to be part of an innovation effort at nonprofits. Volunteer to leave an effort that may not be all that glamorous inside of your organization. Take some risk and try something you know is an area of your weakness. If you're weak in a particular area, try a project that specifically will drive that experience, improve that experience for you in that particular area. So again, innovation strengths, know what those are, leverage those every day. Innovation weaknesses, find those, learn, practice, and do it. We'll be right back. Welcome to Killer Innovations. We are back for segment 2, continuing our conversation on how to build your innovation confidence. Now, as I shared before in the first segment, we talked about innovation strengths and innovation weaknesses. But building on that, what I want to talk about really is how to improve that really can improve that innovation confidence. We talked about it in the weaknesses, which is go out and volunteer and do something and try to do something. So I'm going to give you a daily exercise here. This exercise is do one thing that scares you every day. So every day, I want you to go out there and do something that just terrifies you. If you have a hard time, for instance, going out and talking with customers and interviewing them and finding out what their needs or wants are, go out and talk. Now, you'd be pretty surprised. I do this radio show. I do a lot of public speaking. I meet a lot of you when I'm on the road. You take your time to come and meet me wherever I'm at in the cities around the world over the last 14 years. And what you would be surprised to know is that I'm actually more of an introvert than an extrovert. When I'm on stage, that's one side of me. When I'm one-on-one with people, I get very nervous. And when I'm at networking events, you'll typically find me in the corner hiding, looking at my phone. So what I had to do is I had to get used to talking and understanding customers. And I did this by standing in Best Buy stores all the years I was CTO at HP, and I would watch customers buy our products. And then if they looked at our product but bought a competitor's, I'd actually force myself to walk up, hand them my business card, and ask them some questions. I had some predefined questions and some information that I was specifically asking for. The first time I did that, it was absolutely terrifying. But then I found out that people are generally nice and they're willing to share information with you, and I actually got into it. So here's your exercise. Find something that scares you, that totally terrifies you, and go do it every day. That will build that confidence that you can get over whatever that fear is that's holding you back. And fear is one of those things that will drag down and have a negative impact on your innovation confidence. So by getting out of that comfort zone, you can face your fears. Now, what does fear really mean? F-E-A-R, false evidence that appears real. False evidence, things that we get our brain wrapped around, we think are negative and appears real, meaning we'll manifest it and think that it's right here, it's going to come and have a huge impact on us. We have to get over that fear. It's false. We tend to over-exaggerate, overblow the impact that we are going to have from going out and trying something new. So the exercise to build your innovation confidence is the one thing that scares you of all the skill sets that you need to be a top innovator. Find those and do it every day to get over that fear, and that will help build your innovation confidence. Now, as I talked about in the case of false evidence is that kind of negative talk. So that's another step to building your innovation confidence, which is silence your inner critic. Some of the harshest comments that we can tell ourselves are worse than anything we would hear from out in the public. and that's that inner voice. We tend to be much more negative on ourselves than people outside looking at us, right? We always have a more negative view of ourselves than the world has of us. So if you struggle with just generally low self-confidence, there's a possibility that your inner critic has become overactive and inaccurate. I talk about this in my TED Talk on imposter syndrome. So if you haven't listened to that, you can just go over to YouTube and search for Phil McKinney TED Talk or Phil McKinney imposter syndrome in the film. Or you can find it over in a blog over at philmckinney.com. And I actually played it as one entire show, so you could hear the whole talk. But I talk about that negative talk and that ability that we've convinced ourselves that something is true when it's not. And look, you're listening to this podcast, which means you're already have learned a ton of stuff about innovation, creativity, leadership skills, right? So check to see if your inner critic is just flat out wrong. Just flat out wrong. Ask yourself, what evidence is there that supports it that I'm a failure, that I'm not very good at innovation, right? Is it something you just said in your head? Or, more likely people around you see you as highly innovative, but we're being self-critical because I'm missing this ability and I've never done this kind of a project, or I've never had a successful XYZ, whatever it is. Don't let that inner critic. So to build that confidence, silence the inner critic. Absolutely critical. And next I want to talk about is track your success. Look, there's two sides to everybody's story. While you may lack innovation confidence, I'm sure that if I asked you, you would be able to point to some innovation successes. Keep track of your successes. I keep mine in one of my mini Moleskine notebooks, and I've got one right here next to me while I'm recording this show. This is a brand new one for the upcoming year. January 1 is coming. I tend to like to group by year. This is also my idea notebook. It's a very specific kind of moleskin that I have found works incredibly well. And in fact, I'll try to remember to post a link to this particular style of moleskin over onto the show notes over at killinnovations.com, and you can click through and check it out and see if it might happen to you. It's actually the notebook we hand out now to during the Innovation Bootcamp courses to everybody. Track your successes. Now, like I said, I keep mine in my moleskin notebooks, and when I need to remind myself of my experiences or how far I've come, I just go back through them. I've got literally Tupperware containers full of these. Another idea is to keep a file of all the emails from the boss and others congratulating you on your successes. In addition, thank you letters, praises for well done work. And here's a bonus. If you keep those emails, if you keep those thank you notes, you keep those letters, they're helpful when you're starting the new job. So again, do one thing every day that scares you, silence your inner critic, and track your successes. With these, you're starting to build that innovation confidence. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are back here in the show working on a whole series of new updated shows. So we got starting our planning for season 15. And if you've got a show idea, hey, why don't you hop on over and Killer Innovations and leave us a note, or better yet, over in the Innovators community, which is where I'm spending most of my time these days. You can just private message me and we'll chat, and you can give me some show ideas. But let's wrap up today's topic. Today's topic is how to build your innovation confidence. We've covered it in the first two segments. Let's continue on. This is the last suggestion on how to build your confidence. And it's one that I specifically put at the end of the show to really emphasize it, and that is train like you mean it. Train like you mean it. In the military, there's a saying that goes something like, the more you sweat, the less you bleed, which means the more you train, the harder you train, the more time you spend in the training, then when you are in the field, the less likely is that you will get injured. So the more you sweat, the less you bleed. So are you training at that level? Now, I'm going to take a guess and say you are probably not training to that level. Right? Now, some people believe that you need to put in a minimum of 10,000 hours to become proficient, to become highly skilled in some area. Do you know how many hours 10,000 hours is? That translates to 4.7 years of working 8 hours a day, every day, doing nothing else. Not doing your expense reports, not getting onto an airplane, not chit-chatting with your cube mates. To put 10,000 hours in of heads down learning and practicing, that's 4.7 years of working 8 hours a day, every day of a year for 4.7 years. Now, are there ways to compress that kind of training to learn something new? And yes, there is. If you're a follower of Tim Ferriss, Tim has this whole approach on how he can do accelerated learning when he wants to go learn something new. The military has another example, which is Navy SEALs training. Now, Navy SEALs training is designed to put people through very intense training so they gain the full experience and learn to do when the opportunity presents itself. They train incredibly hard with every kind of scenario, every kind of challenge, every kind of activity that you could think of. So how do you create that same kind of intense training when it comes to innovation? One way is to attend experience-based training. And this is specific, experience-based training. It's not about, book theory or talking head. You're going up, you're sitting in a chair, and you're with 500 people, and someone's clicking PowerPoint slides. That is not what I'm talking about. I am a firm believer that to build confidence, you need to create experiences. And in some cases, it needs to be intense experiences. So, what am I talking about? There are a few programs out there, such as executive certificate programs at major universities. I did one a number of years ago at MIT. I've done them at Harvard. I've done them at Stanford. I've taught at Dartmouth. I used to do a regular semester course at Columbia School for Entrepreneurship. The D School at Stanford, I used to teach a master class at. You can get these kinds of very intense, concentrated, very focused programs. Now, one course that I teach is called the Innovation Bootcamp, which I teach maybe 2 to 3 times a year because the preparation for this course is unbelievably intense. Now, I've been teaching this course for nearly a decade now. And in most cases, it's a closed course, meaning that it's only really available to the organizations that I'm teaching it for. So at HP, only HP employees could take it. However, courses now that I'm taking periodically will be an open course to allow people from any industry to come and participate. Now, in my case, this is a 4-day course, 12 to 16-hour days. The course takes the students through the entire process, the entire framework, which we call FIRE, focus, ideation, ranking, execution. And it's not just that they learn it, but they do it. They experience it. They actually live it. They have, we take a theme for the boot camp, and we've done things like aging in play, smart cities, a whole wide range of it. And we actually have people who are expecting extremely high quality output as a result of that. And some projects out of the boot camp have actually got supported and have gotten funded. So this is a very intense 4 days. Now, I created this course out of just sheer necessity in order to train my teams at HP. And it continues. Now, there are others that are out there. Just make sure that the course and the instructors deliver on creating the innovation experience. Not just, here are the 12 steps to run a brainstorm, and here's 6 sources for ideas, and here's how you create a project budget. No, do it. You want the experience. You want that intensity. You want that pressure. That's where you can accelerate your learning. Otherwise, go spend your 4.7 years and get your 10,000 hours in. If you want to accelerate, like what the Navy SEALs do and other organizations to accelerate the learning of their people, you need to create that kind of an experience. And the other way to accelerate learning faster than the 10,000 hours is to find others who have done it and learn from them, such as joining the community. So you can hop on over to the innovators.community. It's where I hang out pretty much all day long. But we've got people who are leading innovators at Fortune 100 companies. We've got entrepreneurs who've had great success and sold their companies. We've got college students who are coming in to learn. We have all walks of life, people who are highly experienced and people who are new, wanting to build up their innovation skills, their innovation confidence. The best way to do that is to hang out with other people who are into innovation, and you do that over at the innovators.community. So check that out. And by the way, membership is free, so it's not costing you anything, but you get to plug in. And I'm telling you, this community has grown by leaps and bounds, and you want to check that out. And so that kind of wraps up what you need to build your innovation confidence. I got one word of caution. Maintain a balance between confidence and overconfidence. A little overconfidence will allow you to step out and try something you've never been doing. It gives you that little bit of extra oomph to say yes when the boss asks you to do something and you have no idea how to do it. But be careful. Know what is a reasonable level of risk. Ask yourself, what would happen if I fail? I'm trying something I don't know how to do. And then, how could I ensure that any failure is recoverable for the team and the organization? Have that plan B if you trip up. Also, don't be that jerk, that person who is way overconfident and that they've become arrogant. No one wants to work for that person. Here's a great quote from Ecker, one that I just really love. If you are insecure, guess what? The rest of the world is too. Do not overestimate the competition and underestimate yourself. You are better than you think. Remember that. You are better than you think. And again, if you haven't listened, hop on over, listen to my TED Talk on imposter syndrome, and that plays out in the innovation space in spades. Trust me. We'll be right back with a new episode of 5 Minutes to New Ideas, a segment that will kickstart your creativity and ability to innovate. Use these 5 minutes new idea episodes as your exercise. 5 Minutes to New Ideas now is also its own standalone podcast, making it easier for you to share with others. You can subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcast. We'll be right back. Back in the early days of this show, I would share what I called a killer question in each episode. These questions were designed to be used in your personal team or organization innovation efforts. Now, based on feedback from listeners like you, we've decided to bring it back with some improvements. Each episode of the Killer Innovations has a segment that I'm now calling 5 Minutes to New Ideas. They are designed for the creative mind looking for that next great idea. Each episode will challenge you to think differently about your business, your products, your services, and yourself by asking unique, funny, and sometimes crazy questions. These questions are designed to force you to look beyond the obvious and to uncover those ideas and opportunities you never before considered. So, get out your notebook and be ready to uncover that game-changing idea. Here is 5 Minutes to New Ideas. Do you need to have a finished product in order to make a sale? Is there any way that not offering a finished product would actually give you an advantage or even become a selling point? Now, my children have long since outgrown toys, but my grandkids have more than once roped me into visits to Build-A-Bear. Build-A-Bear, like the paint-your-own pottery craze that preceded it, doesn't offer a finished product. In fact, the whole selling point is that you create your own customized product in store. These types of businesses are offering a dual product, both the end result, be it a stuffed animal and a personalized costume, or an I Love Papa coffee mug and the chance to create something without taking responsibility for gathering materials or cleaning up the mess it generates. A stuffed toy may feel like a low-risk product, but children's fads can be as fickle as an adult's. Just ask any parent. Once you start adding the layers of design, complexity to a toy, clothes, accessories, pre-recorded sounds, you risk creating something that misses the mark with your target audience. Build-A-Bear's strategy is very clever in that it allows them to keep components rather than finished products as inventory. They never have to run the risk of being stuck with 10,000 astronaut bears the week after the last Pirates of the Caribbean opens. There are 2 points to take from this. The first is that these companies are reducing their risk of having a stockroom full of briefly popular products that they now can't sell. The second is that they are able to charge their customers a premium for the pleasure of assembling the final bear. They've been able to persuade their customers that down is up. They don't offer a fully finished product for sale, and if you do want their product, you will have to assemble it yourself. That is absolute genius. Home bakers have experienced a similar shift in how they make a product. For example, a birthday cake. When I was a kid, my grandma would make me a birthday cake from scratch every year. The cake cost maybe $1 in commodity goods. Now, when she passed away, my mom took over the job of making my cake. She would go buy a cake mix, add an egg, some oil, and some water, and that was it. Of course, that cake was more expensive because of the convenience factor of having a pre-made cake mix, but you still had to make it yourself. There's a relationship between the amount you're paying and the experience you're getting with these products, and it's more than just simply convenience. Manufacturers have to walk a thin line between making a product so easy that it feels like cheating and so complex the user sees no value in the supposed convenience. When cake mixes first came out, they were really simple. All you had to do was add water. But people making these cakes didn't like it because it felt too easy, like they hadn't contributed anything to it and couldn't claim any pride in making the cake. So cake mixes were altered to require a fresh egg as well, and the products took off. If you want to build this kind of emotional connection with your customer, you need to look at how you can offer them a creative, I did this kind of an experience. There's also a positive customer experience in being able to feel a sense of personal pride in something they've done for themselves. Can you give them an opportunity to take ownership over the construction process? Look at ways in which you can add real value for your customer while simultaneously giving them a less finished product that then reduces your cost to manufacture and to ship that product. Can you give them the chance to say, I did this? So, can you create an on-demand version of your product? While this sounds easy, it requires you to dissect your product or service and ask yourself, what benefits would you get if you were able to sell your product such that the customer assembles it? Could assembling it be pitched as a learning, bonding, or more authentic process? And could you increase the perceived value and hence the cost of your product by emphasizing its real-time availability? It's not always about the finished product, By embedding an experience that solicits a "I did this" feeling, you could be the one to launch that next on-demand craze. I'm Phil McKinney, and thanks for listening. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join in. If you have any comments or suggestions, drop me a note at phil@killerinnovations.com. Beyond this show, I write about my personal experiences of being in the innovation game for the last 2 decades. Topics include innovation, creativity, culture, team building, metrics, frustrations, leadership, and how to win. You can find that content over at philmckinney.com. You can also find out information about my book, Beyond the Obvious, including extensive excerpts over at beyondtheobvious.com. You can find hardcover, digital, and audio versions of my book on Amazon or wherever you get your books from. Now, the reason I started this show back in 2005 was to pay back my early mentor. My first mentor, Bob Davis, invested an immense amount of time in training and coaching me, which had a major impact on my career. When I went back and asked him how I could pay him back, he laughed and said I couldn't. I had to pay it forward. If I could ask for a favor, could you help me pay it forward? How? 1, by giving us a rating wherever you get your podcast, as that helps spread the word. And 2, by telling others about the show. If you want to be part of the conversation between the shows, I hang out in the Innovators community on Slack. The Innovators community is a private community of vetted innovators who help each other succeed. Check it out at theinnovators.community. This episode of Killer Innovations was produced by the Innovators Network. You can find the show notes and the entire show catalog going back to 2005 at killerinnovations.com. I'll talk to you next week, and in the meantime, go out and change the world with your killer innovation. Bye-bye.